Well, g'day and welcome to Stu's Shed. Today I've got a couple of different concepts of router bits for you, and the difference between them is literally of biblical proportion. Now, they both come from the ToolsToday stable, and the first bits I've got here are the smallest of Amana tools, and it's a couple of different types of pattern copying bit. Now, it's going to be pretty small for you to see. I'll hold them up against my t-shirt there so you can get an idea of their size. These will be the smallest of the 1/4 inch straight bits with a bearing, and in this case this is a tiny little bearing. It just sits on, in this case, at the end, and this case sits below the cutter on these two bits. Now, when you're working with pattern copying, you can either work by something like this bit where you plunge through the workpiece and then the pattern's on top and the bearing follows that, or if for some reason you need to, you can plunge up through from underneath when this is table mounted and have the pattern on at the base, and again the pattern then follows the bearing and cuts the bit. Now, having such a fine bearing means you can get into some pretty incredible detail, in comparison to something like a 1/2 inch pattern copying bit, which will do the majority of the heavy duty work around the edges, but where it comes to getting into the smallest detail, it really rounds them over. Well, these get right in there and still duplicate the pattern that you've got. Now, there's David, as in the of biblical proportions, and I just want to introduce you now to Goliath. This is, I don't know if it's the largest bit that ToolsToday sell for the 1/2 inch router, but it's got to get close. It is 2.5 inches across. It has 4 replaceable tungsten carbide tip cutters on it, 2 orientated vertically, which in this case provide a bit of a scraping action, and 2 located underneath, which I've never seen before on another type of servicing bit, which are doing a shearing action. Overall, that is a monster of a bit, and you'd want a good router to be able to run something like that, but in saying that, having a good router that you can run something like this, that's going to do a hell of a job on servicing. Now, as it happens to be that, and as many would know, I have a very, very good tool for doing servicing in my workshop, and that's the Torque Work Centre. And I've set it up here with probably one of the largest slabs that I've got at the moment. It's a piece of camphor laurel, so the aroma off this is going to be quite incredible by the time I finish today. And I'm thinking I'm actually going to turn into a bit of a natural edged coffee table, or sort of table for the workshop for upstairs on the mezzanine. And of course, rather than have it with this, I mean, it looks all right, but we know how much better this can can actually look when we surface it. So I'm going to take this router bit, this surface cutter, and we're going to surface this slab and to see just how well it can come up, and be particularly interested to see how the combination of a scraping and a shearing action will be on the resulting finish. So I've got everything now set up. I've got the surfacing cutter mounted in the router. The router's variable speed, and I've got it set on, it's almost silent speed. The router bit can handle more than 8,000 RPM, so I've got that dialed up a little bit. I've got dust extraction hooked up just to the collector here, and basically the whole slab's secured down. I've got Velcro clamps all around, just resisting any tendency for the slab to move, and just at one point I've got it wedged, just because it might have a tendency to rock at that point. So really there's not much else to do now rather than start it up and run through it. Now, as I'm running back up and down initially, I'm just looking for high spots, just so I can get an idea of the lay of the land as it was. And then from there onwards, I'll start doing incremental changes to depth and run over the whole surface and just keep going until I end up with a flat slab. So after a couple of passes, it's going quite well. I've determined obviously quite a large high area over this side, and we're just starting to catch this edge here too, so that's starting to work. I'm actually going to find that I'm not going to be able to do this back corner here. I just haven't set it just far enough down the tool. Haven't got it set down the tool. Now I'm going to drop the dust guard down a little bit. I'm just not picking up as much as I would have expected, and that's because the brushes aren't actually pressing on the timber as well as they probably should. And that's just a setting I haven't. Just got to drop that setting down, and then it's just a matter of I'm dropping down by about 4 to 5 mil at a time. So the cutter's doing some work, but it's certainly not having any issues with it whatsoever. And it's handling it. I actually took a bit of a bigger bite off than I was actually expecting in one of the first passes, and only realised it after the fact when I saw the size of the step that I'd made. And I was just like, well, the cutter certainly handled that without any complaint whatsoever. I've had other cutters that would be balking at that sort of workload, but this one's it's just ripping through it. Interesting too that I find that if I go if I cut one way, as I'm cutting down the length of the wood, which is the normal direction of routing as well for the router, that I'm not getting any feathering at all. But interestingly, when I try to do a climb cut, which is when I go back the other way, it is actually rubbing the surface up quite significantly, and I think that's a idiosyncrasy perhaps of the two shearing cutters. It doesn't make any difference at all, so it just goes back over that area in the right direction and just cuts all those feathers, that feathering off. But it just means that when I get closer to the final passes, I just need to be more conscious of the feed direction, just to make sure that we get the best possible finish off the cutter. But certainly the finish that's coming up so far is exactly what I'd be expecting to see, so it's working very, very well. And having such a large router bit, as I said, with that 2.5 inch diameter, the amount of pass that I can take is quite significant. So it does make the work go quite quickly. Now just a bit of a quick conclusion to this video. I've now since taken the top and I've just run over it with the belt sander. This is the Festool belt sander, so it's got its that nice little sled on it that keeps it all nice and level. And then I've hit it with a very quick sand on the random orbital sander with an 80 grit. And what I've done here is I've literally splashed some Danish oil over the top just to give you an idea of what it can look like. And you can see it's quite a contrasting difference between the before and after. This is some of the beauty of camphor laurel. It's actually a really nice timber. It's got a lot of character, a lot of depth in its colour, and it comes up really nicely. Yeah, so when you have a look at it, and it's it's sanded, it looks alright, and you hit it with some oil, and you really see what it comes out like. Now, just as another little interesting point, it had a few cracks in the top, and these were ones from where it's not dried particularly evenly, or the moisture hasn't come out particularly evenly. It's caused some cracking, and I've just filled those with a shellac filler. So there's actually a crack there, which is all filled with shellac and then sanded back, and a couple down the end here, which I've filled with a slightly different, well, quite a different colours shellac, again just to disguise it. I'm never going to be able to make them absolutely hidden, but at least rather than having an actual hollow or a crack visible in the top, a shellac filler is a very useful tool, and that was just applied with a soldering iron. Literally just applied with a soldering iron, melted and dripped into the cracks, and then sanded flush. So I'm going to keep working on this, and I haven't quite decided what it's going to be yet. It's actually a really nice piece of timber that may not end up being a top. I might decide it's going to look better on the shed wall, which is it's starting to look more and more feasible in that direction. So it's one of these things. I just let the timber tell me what it wants to be, and this one was originally telling me it wanted to be a tabletop, and now it's telling me it doesn't, and would rather be a bit of natural art. Certainly the character of camphor laurel is more than capable of being a very beautiful piece of bit of natural art as well.